Let's speak to the Conservative MP for Lichfield, Michael Fabricant. Michael, great to have you on the show on a Friday night. You're a fastidiously loyal man. You always return my calls. But might a change at the top save the party's fortunes in a year's time?
Well, it isn't going to be practical. That's the point. You know, I see on Twitter people say, bring back Boris and, you know, all will be well. The problem is people don't realise that Boris Johnson is no longer a member of Parliament. And unless we do something bonkers, like when we brought back David Cameron and put him into the House of Lords, which is a problem because it means we can't actually question him in the House of Commons, even though he's the Foreign Secretary, we're hardly going to go back to the 18th century and have a member of the House of Lords in number 10 as Prime Minister. So I don't think it's going to happen. There's another reason why it won't happen as well, is because, you know, it will take 3 to 4 months for the members of Parliament to find a successor, and then to find, you know, in the country, the members of the the members of the Conservative Party nationally to make a decision. So, yeah, it just ain't going to happen. And also for all the reasons that Michael Crick said earlier, people will just think we're bonkers if we ditch yet another leader.
Just hypothetically, though, Michael, Suella Braverman as leader of the party would surely spark the Tories back into life and destroy any support that Reform UK may have among right-leaning voters.
Well, I'm very fond of Suella Braverman, and although she can be a little bit outspoken at times, you know, hey, what? I actually think being outspoken and speaking your mind is not a bad thing. If there is a criticism of Rishi, I would say at times he appears very wooden. I actually agree with his basic instincts. I think he is a good Eurosceptic, and I think he is going in the right direction, particularly with not going too quickly on certain green issues. But, you know, the one thing he seems to lack, except when you meet him privately, is passion. And a passion and conviction is something that goes over well with the British public. He's got these things, but he doesn't display them always. But I love Suella, yeah.
Well, indeed. Michael, speaking of passion and conviction, Sunak this week has spoken bullishly about sticking with the Rwanda plan and making it work. Do you believe him?
Well, I believe he's sticking with it. I'm not altogether sure. I had a meeting in number 10 last week, and I was saying that I don't think it's actually that wise to be considering just the Rwanda plan, because even though we're going to pass a law to say that the government deems that Rwanda is a safe place to go, that doesn't mean that the courts won't still hold it up. But I do understand that we're looking at other locations, and very, very briefly, we were even looking at Bermuda, can you believe, a crown colony. But I'll tell you what, if they put Bermuda as a possible location for sending people, I think I'll be crossing on the boats in order to get a cheap holiday.
Too right. You and I will be sharing a dinghy. After all, we've shared modes of transport in the past, Michael. Listen, let me bring Michael Crick and Laura Dodworth into this conversation. And, Michael, I take your point that it would be absolute stark raving madness for the Tories to get rid of Rishi Sunak at this stage. But the election could be a year away and they face certain annihilation. So what is there to lose? Michael.
Which Michael?
Oh, Crick.
Well, what is there to lose? Well, there's no certainty as to who would get elected, as to whether it... I don't think it would be Suella Braverman. I don't think she has the support amongst the MPs. I mean, I suppose Kemi Badenoch is quite a good bet, but I think Kemi Badenoch's got various flaws. I'm not certain that anybody that the Conservatives chose would be actually appreciably better than Rishi Sunak. One area I do disagree with Michael Fabricant is you could actually do it very quickly. You could put all the Tory MPs together in a room, lock the door and say, right, come out with 2 names and tomorrow we'll give them to the membership online, or we'll find a way of polling them by post. And you could do all that in a week.
But
Michael,
you know what? This is what happened in a way when we got Liz Truss, and then we ended up with Rishi Sunak, and we didn't actually. You can't do it that quickly online. There are certain reasons why we can't do it. No, it's just not practical, I'm afraid.
Laura Dodworth, what do you think about this? Because I think Suella Braverman would certainly move the dial for the party if they were to place her in the top job.
I absolutely agree, but I think it would be a bad move before the next general election because it's it doesn't look good for the Conservatives in the next general election. I think probably in the scorched earth, that's the time for a new leader to emerge. I wouldn't mind asking Michael Fabricant about something, though. So in Suella Braverman's rather wonderful letter, she talked about Rishi Sunak's distinctive style of government. Now, this isn't what she meant, but there is something about his distinctive style of government which I absolutely hate. I think it degrades and diminishes the dignity of the office. What's with all these photographs and videos of the Cabinet Office?
Sorry, videos in the Cabinet Office?
Yeah, he's done these little pieces, almost talking to camera, talking about all the important work they're doing. It's a bit like a Blue Peter video.
I know. I think it's the future, though. I think they're all doing it. Do you remember when Tony Blair came out all those years ago with his mug of coffee saying, well, I'm a decent sort of guy? People seemed to like it at the time.
Really? The thing is, I mean, it just treats the nation like children. I think it's really embarrassing, and it diminishes the dignity of what they're doing. I think if that's the future, we're really stuffed.
Notwithstanding your
well,
collective...
at the end of the day, what we've got to do is deliver. You know, I keep saying it again and again and again. You know, everybody's fed up with talk. Now, we're not going to stop every single boat crossing, illegal boat crossing, but, you know, we've got to do something, and we've got to do it pretty soon. And just going down the Rwanda path, I think, is not going to work. If it does work, I'll be the first to be applauding. But, yeah, it's time to stop doing all little chats. It's time to deliver.
Michael.
I think the Conservatives are doomed. And I think every now and then in politics, every 10 or 15 years, there's an event which just transforms public opinion, and the governing party can't get it back. Things like the 3-day week, devaluation in the 60s, the Black Wednesday, and in this case, it's the Truss government and the disaster of the budget of Kwasi Kwarteng. And I think now that's why the polling figures don't change much. And my advice to Sunak would be press on, do all you can to keep Labour's majority down, or even, you know, perhaps even restrict them to a minority government. But you're going to lose. Your best bet is to try and keep as many of your MPs as you can, and certainly don't resign. You might end up with somebody worse for the Conservative Party. But that's the situation. We're going to see Keir Starmer as Prime Minister in about a year's time. I don't think it's going to be a wonderful Labour government, but I think it's time for a change, and I think that's the view of the British public.
And actually, controversially, I think...
though.
What's that, Michael?
I'm saying, listening to Keir Starmer's droning voice, if he were Prime Minister, we'd all die of boredom.
Well, potentially.
There's some truth in that.
Well, you raise an interesting point, which is in our increasingly presidential system, I still think that Sunak edges it over Starmer as the best potential CEO for the country. So personally, I'd stick with Sunak, but that's just my opinion.